Hey everybody, this is Joe Gilder from HomeStudioCorner.com, and we're going to talk today about MIDI controllers. We're on the number 9 in our 12 Home Studio Necessities series. This is a MIDI controller. I bought this off of Craigslist. Look how the keys, they're yellow. It's like nasty teeth. This is an M-Audio, an Oxygen 64, 61. That makes more sense. So what is a MIDI controller and why do I think you need it? Well, not everybody's going to need it. Case in point. On my last album that I did, Help of the Helpless, everything was recorded with a microphone. I don't have any MIDI on that entire album, okay? And whereas on my previous album, I had lots of keyboards and organ and MIDI piano and lots of other stuff in there, MIDI drums even. So I'd had a lot of MIDI on that album, and I just got kind of sick of MIDI for my music, and so I have no MIDI on this last album. However, I do still own a MIDI controller because I work with clients who want some sounds that I just can't get in my studio. So if you want the sound of an orchestra and your budget is $200, we're not going to go hire an orchestra for $200, right? It's just not in the cards. However, we can get a decent virtual instrument and play the parts in on a keyboard and come up with something cool. Or if you want B3 Hammond organ on your recording and you can't hire my buddy Justin to play on it, you don't have that in the budget, then, or you're working yourself on your own music, you can play in an organ part. I would definitely recommend getting someone who knows how to play an organ part. That's another video for another day. But you can play in the parts and use different virtual instruments that you have in your software to get all sorts of sounds. So maybe it's a bunch of cool synth sounds that you couldn't get anyway. Maybe you're just picking up a piano because you don't own a piano or don't have access to one. There's lots of reasons to use MIDI, and it can, if done well, it can be a great addition to your songs. It doesn't have to be cheeseball like some MIDI stuff tends to be. You can use it to really enhance a song and to add lots of little cool, interesting tidbits by adding these different virtual instruments. Okay? But you need some sort of way to play it into your computer. So the way a MIDI controller works, it's just a big remote control. Okay? When I hit a button on this, it doesn't make any sounds at all. It just tells the computer, hey, he just hit middle C. I need to play a middle C somewhere. Okay? And the way it connects to the computer is one of two ways. I'm totally using visual aids more. This is awesome. It's got a USB output that plugs into my computer. That's how I use it. It also has a MIDI out. So if you don't have an extra USB port available and you've got a MIDI port on your audio interface, then you can just run a MIDI cable. I've used it that way too back in the past when all my USB interfaces or USB ports, that's the word, were full. I would just use it that way. So what this does, you play the note and then it plays some sort of software, some sort of instrument in your software, okay? So that's, everybody knows. If you don't know what a MIDI instrument does, I just explained it to you. It's just a remote control for something else, okay? Now, do you have to have this in your studio? No. But every DAW out there has some sort of virtual instruments included. I use Studio One. It's got some cool synthy stuff. Pro Tools has Expand. Just that alone is a really great sounding plugin. It's also got the Mini Grand and the B3 emulator. That stuff sounds actually really good for stock free plugins, and it's great for adding textures to a mix. So you can't really play those if you don't have some sort of MIDI controller. Even if you're not a piano player, if you can play basic notes even just to get a melody played in, it's worth having something like this so that you can enter those in. Because playing parts in with the mouse, just clicking and adding notes is not super fun, but having something like a MIDI controller in your arsenal is a great thing to have. Now, I will admit I've not fired this up in quite a while, but I've got a session coming up later this month where the client's going to want a bunch of synthy stuff. So you bet I'll be pulling this bad boy out, playing some synth parts, and it's going to be great. And if I didn't have it, I couldn't do that. So put this on your to-get list at some point, some sort of, even just a cheap MIDI controller. It'll add a ton of possibilities to your recordings, and you'll be glad you got it.